Hey guys, it's Danny. Today we're gonna discuss about showering orchids. It's pretty warm outside and I didn't shower my orchids all winter long and it's kind of time. They're so dusty. So I'm gonna show you why I want to shower my orchids, the dangers of showering orchids, and also some ways to make it a little safer. You might already know by now that nobody actually recommends that you leave pools of water in crowns of the orchids or in new growths or in between the leaves and so on. And that's actually one of the major don'ts that I talk about in my video that I'll link you down below. The problem with pools of water staying too long on the structures of the orchids is accumulation of bacteria. And not only bacteria, fungal spores and other pathogens. These organisms actually develop better in high moisture conditions, and not only, they reproduce faster as well. By allowing water to pool in the orchid structures for long periods of time, you allow accumulation of bacteria and pathogens, and that can lead to infections of the crown, of the stem, of new growth on some orchids, and even on the leaves. So in the orchid hobby, that's one of the things that we avoid the most. However, there are some exceptions, and there are some things that favor diseases and some things that can actually limit them. So the first question you might have is, why do we need to protect the leaves and crowns when in nature orchids get wet all the time? Well, there are a few things. First of all, the way an orchid grows in nature. Some orchids really don't grow in the same way that we grow them in a home environment. For example, a Phalaenopsis orchid which is potted has a tendency to lean. And this is because naturally it would grow on a tree and its position would be something like this. This pattern of growth ensures that pools of water actually slide off the leaves. So even if the orchids get wet, pools of water are greatly limited. Also, because the quantity of water on the actual structures is not a lot, it doesn't take forever to evaporate. Also, in nature we have a lot more ventilation and air movement than in a home. And you might already know that commercial greenhouses, and not only, private greenhouses use a lot of fans to move the air around. Well, that's one of the reasons. Air movement greatly decreases the chances of all sorts of infections. But it's not only air movement, it's about fresh air as well. It's one of the things that I talk about in one of my older videos, titled 5 Things That Actually Keep Your Orchid Safer. I'll link you down below. Fresh air is crucial to orchids, and let me explain why. So you might have a growing space with fans circulating the air, but if you don't introduce new air, the atmosphere in your growing space will in time get saturated by spores, bacteria, pathogens, and so on. So even if you're using a fan to circulate the air, you will also circulate whatever is in the air, bacteria, fungal spores, and all sorts of other things. So introducing and refreshing the air in your growing space is very important. So these are a few things that favor disease in our orchids. Temperature can also influence how fast the water evaporates. The colder it is, the slower the water evaporates, so the chances of bacterial and fungal accumulations increase as well. I'm also inclined to believe that the water we use is important as well. In nature, orchids receive rainwater, which is very poor in minerals. If we are using tap water, there is a chance that those salt accumulations that remain on the structures and on the leaves can actually damage the cuticle, not to mention the underside of the leaf, and make an open wound for bacteria and fungal spores to enter. This way, we can actually explain why some people who grow orchids, let's say outside, manage to shower them every day using a hose, or let rain water them every day and nothing bad really happens. The bacterial climate outside in a garden is really different than one inside, particularly in certain seasons, like winter. This is the reason why I didn't do this earlier, even though my orchids were pretty dusty. In winter time, chances of me destroying my orchids are a lot bigger than right now. So why do we actually want to remove the dust from the foliage? Well, for starters, if it accumulates in great amounts, it can impair the light the orchid receives. Also, if it accumulates on the underside, it can impair respiration. It's suggested that it's not a good idea to rub the underside of the leaf because we might clog the breathing mechanisms, actually the stomatas of the orchids. Now, I've never experienced it, or I don't think I did, so I don't know what to tell you about the symptoms of stomata clogging, but it makes sense to me that they can get clogged by particles of dust if we really rub the underside, so I just prefer not to do it. And the only way to remove the dust from the underside is by a shower. Now, I often get comments that somebody showers orchids all the time and nothing bad ever happens, not even in a home. Well, it's not a rule that something bad will happen. There are a lot of factors that influence it, and the external factors need to be just right for it to happen. But we kind of have a saying, you only need to burn your tongue once to actually start to blow over yogurt as well. And I've actually crown rotted some orchids. I know it can happen, therefore I prefer to take safety measures. So let's talk about the safety measures. Well, first of all, I don't want to shower the flowers. Orchids with very flimsy flowers such as the Nelly Eiler, but not only, many Phalaenopsis orchids, Cattleya orchids with fluffy flowers, pretty much the orchids that do not have waxy flowers are very prone to botrytis. Now I'll link you down below to an article about it so you know what it is. Pretty much it's a fungus and it creates dark spots on the flowers. And needless to say, it doesn't look pretty. Overall, it doesn't affect the orchid all that much, although it can under certain conditions. But just for aesthetic reasons, I don't want to shower flowers. Now, for safety reasons, I don't want to shower new growth. Now, the new growth, being that it's fresh, is not so dusty, so it's not in danger of actually being suffocated or receiving not enough light. My main goal is to shower the older leaves. I would go as far as to say never shower new growth, simply because of its shape. It has layers of leaves, pretty much like an onion, and if water manages to seep in, well, the space is too tight to have air contact, so it doesn't evaporate. So another safety measure that I will take is to not actually spray or get water in any type of new growth on sympodial orchids. After my orchids are showered, I will place them on my terrace in open air. I have a lot of fresh air and a lot of ventilation due to the breeze, so I have more chances of water evaporating faster, and also not accumulating bacteria and fungal spores. To aid in the process of water evaporation, I will also use a little bit of dish soap. I did a video a while back in which I compared the drying time of water without soap and of water with soap on an orchid leaf. The reasoning is that soap breaks water tension, therefore it breaks the tension of the water droplets. This induces a faster evaporation, and if you check the video below, you will see the difference is dramatic. I was actually not expecting it to be this way. In my experience, it never actually harmed orchids, and many orchid growers use it, but if you're wary of it, maybe you'd like to test it on an orchid or on a leaf first, just to be sure, or if you're really scared to shower with soapy water, then just don't do it. It's okay, just make sure the water evaporates. I will also be using osmosis water. Since I became a lot more economical with osmosis water, I can afford the splurge. The reason is that osmosis water is very poor in minerals, therefore I will not have white accumulations, salt deposits actually, on the foliage and the structures. And with all of this in mind, I'm gonna go take some of my orchids that I want to shower outside on the terrace, and with all of these safety measures, I should have the best chances of actually not destroying my orchids. So keep in mind, showering orchids is a little bit like the lottery. Most probably you're not gonna win, but once in a blue moon, somebody does. And if you happen to be the winner, oh boy. So we're on the terrace right now, you can hear the sounds of nature, got myself a few orchids. Now I'm gonna be using a spray bottle. This is not the bottle that I use for watering. The nozzle is not messed up. So I'm gonna add just a little bit of dish soap, and inside, actually I have osmosis water. Put the cap on and give it a good shake. And now it's time to spray. So I'm gonna do the undersides, the upper sides, and that's it. By the way, benefit of soapy water is that it kind of disinfects as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and do all of these orchids. We're gonna come back and see what else we can do. One thing I'll do though, if I have orchids which are too upright, I will get a paper napkin and just make sure that in the crown there isn't a pool of water. This is just gonna help it evaporate faster. Okay, so about half an hour has passed. Let's see our orchids. They are completely dry actually, and they look a lot less dusty. Now, this is not gonna work if you have salt stains from fertilizer or fungicide stains or insecticides or stuff of the sorts. If you have issues with deposits, white deposits and stuff of the sorts, I'll link you down below to my video. A solution of water and lemon juice can actually dissolve them because lemon is an acid. And I did make a comparison between simple water and water with lemon, so you can see the results down below. So that's about it. I'm gonna take these orchids inside and I'm gonna spray a few more. And as a last idea, if you do decide to try out the shower with soapy water, make sure you don't use too much soap because then you're gonna be left with some dish detergent residue. I actually used a tiny little bit and it was enough. And from time to time I do see a little bit of soap residue, but luckily it comes off with a dry paper or even my fingers. I don't need to apply water and I'm good with that. I much rather prefer to have some soap residue than some rotting issues. So alrighty guys, thank you for watching this video. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe to my channel for daily orchid and plants videos. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. And PS, thank you for 38,000 subscribers. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye! So funny thing with my red Nelly Eiler, let's call her a red velvet. Looky here, we have a completely yellow dot on this petal. Now it's the only flower that presents it, the other ones are looking fine, but it's pretty. It's a little bit of a sign of peloria. By the way, I've never seen a peloric Nelly Eiler, but did you guys ever see one? A peloric Nelly Eiler? I imagine it would look fantastic actually. With this bright yellow on the petals and the veining, I think it will look really nice.